Competition is a good thing. Competition is a sign that there is money in a market. And this is something that I think might put a lot of people off or kind of, make their head go sideways, because a lot of people, especially beginner business owners, are afraid of competition and things like that. I've been running my own business for the past about 3 years, and I've learned a lot of things. I made a lot of mistakes. But one of the things which I also realized is competition is not a bad thing. I used to shoot down a lot of business ideas just because I thought, oh, there's too much competition. And I see a lot of people nowadays as well. They'll say, for example, I'm not going to learn React or like JavaScript because there's too much competition. There's too many developers that already know that. Competition in and of itself does not mean something is bad. It means that there is a market for it. For example, there's a lot of competition for restaurants. Guess what? The reason there's a lot of competition is because there's a lot of demand. Competition becomes a problem when there is too much supply and not enough demand. So when demand is going down and suppliers are producing more, that's when you basically run into a problem, right? And then your price crashes. But competition in and of itself, it will force you to improve. This is one of the things which I enjoy about being here in London. I moved to London recently. It was a move that I chose to make. There was no reason I needed to be here. I chose to come here, even though it's a more expensive economy, higher taxes, all those things, because it is a market that is more competitive. What that means is if I want to compete here, I have to compete with some of the best in the world. It will force me into being competitive, but also if you win in a market like London, it's a lot easier to then win in other markets that are smaller because you have already been, in the most kind of fierce competition. Competition will make you better. For the most part, startups don't fail because of competition. Startups fail for all kinds of reasons, co-founder breakups, whatever, but they don't really fail because of too much competition. It's just that your business probably won't fail because of competition. Competition might make it harder to grow super fast and stuff like that, but fundamentally, it's not going to put you out of business most of the time unless you don't have a business to start with. If you have a bad business case, yeah, then of course, competition is going to put you out of business. But the reality is it's not a problem. It means that there's money in that market. There's this idea of blue oceans and red oceans. It's a book that's mostly directed at a more corporate audience, but it basically speaks on red oceans, which are like kind of crowded markets where, there's a lot of competition, and blue oceans, which are kind of a fresh market that people haven't explored, and that's where you should go. And yes, absolutely, that is where you're going to make a huge profit and stuff like that and grow very, very fast and scale like crazy. That's Uber, that's Airbnb, all those great things. Now, that aside, you can still compete in a red market, in a red ocean. You can still compete and you can still make profit and you can still grow the business. It's a lot slower, but you can still exist there. Competition in and of itself does not mean that you shouldn't start a business. For those aspiring business owners, for the people who want to try, don't be afraid of competition. When you find it hard to get clients, the reality is it's not because of competition, it's because you're probably not good enough at marketing and you need to work on that. It's a skill issue, basically. I've seen some comments from people saying that competition is too high, especially like programmers, which is a lot of my audience. But the reality is you can still stand out in a market where there's a lot of competition. And yes, demand might be falling a little bit now, like the economy is somewhat turbulent, but you can still stand out. You just need to get better at marketing. That is a big part of beating competition. But 90% of the time, people will place blame on things like competition when in reality, they can put more effort in themselves. Whether or not there is competition is irrelevant. You just have to consider whether a market is growing or not. That is really what is fundamentally most important. If the market is going to continue to grow, there is space for you to grow and grow your earning potential and things like that, whether it is as a business owner or as an employee. Regardless, both of those markets. As a business owner, you're a different kind of worker, but you're still a worker fundamentally. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on competition. I think too many people run away from it. I think people going to run away from Europe and the US to Bali for lower costs is well, it's great temporarily, but the reality is that competition will help you get better. But anyway, that's just my little rant on things. I'm gonna go to sleep now because today hasn't been a super productive day and I really need to get things back on track. Comment if you have any questions, subscribe if you enjoyed.